vegetarian, for Christ's sakes. He's never killed anyone in his life.
Hitler was vegetarian.
What happens when the heroes we idolize are just as flawed as the world they protect? In a genre often filled with bright symbols of hope and clear lines between good and evil, Watchmen flips the script. What if the people behind the masks were morally ambiguous, broken, and, at times, more dangerous than the villains they fight? What if saving the world required making impossible choices, leaving no one truly innocent? This is not your typical superhero story. Instead, it's a deep, gritty dive into the human condition.
It's gonna take a while, and we don't have time to wait.
In 2009, Watchmen burst onto the scene as a bold and unconventional entry into superhero cinema. Long before the genre dominated pop culture as it does today, Watchmen offered a complex narrative dissecting what it truly means to be a hero in a morally ambiguous America where masked vigilantes are outlawed.
Forced everyone out except him.
The film opens with the murder of a former hero, setting off a chain of events that unearth a devastating conspiracy. As Rorschach, a masked detective with a fractured psyche, investigates, he uncovers a plot that threatens not just heroes, but humanity itself.
I think it might have driven us crazy.
Director Zack Snyder brought Alan Moore's iconic graphic novel to life with meticulous attention to detail. The film, produced with a budget of around $130 million to $150 million, grossed $187 million at the box office. Despite modest success, it was not the blockbuster some expected. With a 71% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes and audiences rating it a respectable 4.3 out of 5, the film was met with mixed reactions.
I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me.
For those who need a refresher, here's the summary. Watchmen is set in an alternate reality where superheroes emerged in the 1940s and 1960s, profoundly shaping world events, including helping the US win the Vietnam War. By 1985, superheroes are outlawed and tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union are nearing nuclear war. The story begins with the murder of Edward Blake, also known as the Comedian, a government-sanctioned vigilante. Rorschach, a masked vigilante still operating illegally, investigates and uncovers a conspiracy to eliminate costumed heroes. He warns his former colleagues, including Dan Drayberg, Night Owl, Laurie Juspexik, Silk Spectre, and the godlike Dr. Manhattan, but they are skeptical. As tensions rise, Dr. Manhattan, who possesses almost limitless powers, is accused of causing cancer in those close to him, prompting him to exile himself to Mars.
We found him. Where is he? Mars.
This leaves the world vulnerable, with nuclear war seemingly imminent. Laurie and Dan rekindle their romance and don their old costumes, questioning their purpose in a world that no longer wants them. Meanwhile, Ozymandias, a former superhero and now a powerful businessman, is revealed to be the mastermind behind the comedian's murder and the larger conspiracy. His goal is to unite humanity by staging a catastrophic event that kills millions, blaming Dr. Manhattan for it. His belief is that this will avert nuclear war by forcing nations to band together against a common enemy.
The greatest practical joke in human history.
Dr. Manhattan, after a journey of self-reflection on Mars with Laurie, returns to Earth too late to stop Ozymandias' plan. In the end, Rorschach refuses to compromise his moral code and threatens to expose the truth, but Dr. Manhattan kills him to maintain the peace. The movie closes with a dark reflection on morality as Dan and Laurie decide to live anonymously, while a journal left behind by Rorschach may expose Ozymandias' actions to the public. The film ends on an ambiguous note, questioning the nature of heroism, power, and the cost of peace.
Another ultimate weapon.
Despite Snyder's faithful adaptation, many critics wondered why Watchmen didn't reach greater heights. At the time, superhero films like Spider-Man 2 and Iron Man adhered to a familiar formula: clear-cut morality, spectacle, and PG-13 accessibility. Watchmen, however, shattered the mold with its R-rating, anti-heroes, and morally complex themes. The film explores a world where heroes are deeply flawed. Characters like the nihilistic comedian and Rorschach, whose uncompromising worldview leaves no room for moral ambiguity, offered a stark contrast to the traditional hero archetypes.
Tell me, what do you see?
A major aspect that set Watchmen apart was its deconstruction of the superhero genre itself. Rather than glorifying heroism, it questioned the consequences of unchecked power.
Destruction by nuclear war.
The film's take on Dr. Manhattan, a godlike being detached from humanity, raises profound questions about the nature of power and responsibility. His journey reflects the existential dilemma of whether absolute power inevitably leads to emotional disconnection. Part of the reason Watchmen didn't resonate more widely in 2009 was that audiences weren't ready for such a cynical, layered narrative. While superhero stories were gaining popularity, they were still primarily seen as escapist entertainment.
Rorschach's journal, October 12th. 1985.
Watchmen offered a much darker, more challenging take, subverting the genre's conventions with flawed, traumatized characters grappling with the consequences of their actions. Snyder's decision to remain faithful to the graphic novel's dark elements resulted in a film that was ahead of its time.
Watchmen are over.
The opening credits sequence alone is a visual triumph, condensing decades of alternate history into a stunning montage. It sets up the universe in which the heroes of Watchmen have shaped world events, reshaping history, politics, and even leading to their own downfall.
What happened to the American dream?
Fast forward to today, and superhero cinema has evolved dramatically. Audiences have grown more accustomed to complex, flawed heroes on screen, with shows like The Boys and HBO's Watchmen series exploring similar deconstructions of the genre. The latter, which premiered in 2019, garnered widespread critical acclaim for addressing themes of race, power, and identity, holding a 96% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
You're hiding in plain sight.
Had Snyder's Watchmen been released in today's climate, it might have received a much warmer reception. Audiences are now more receptive to superhero stories that challenge the status quo and delve into darker, introspective territory. The film's themes of disillusionment, corruption, and existential dread resonate more now than they might have in 2009. One of the film's standout features is its visual style. Snyder's signature slow-motion sequences, though sometimes criticized, serve a purpose here, amplifying the brutality and beauty of the film's world. The action scenes are not mere spectacles. They are windows into the motivations and inner turmoil of each character.
When you are.
Snyder's direction transforms the violent confrontations into moments of deep character revelation. Jackie Earle Haley's portrayal of Rorschach is particularly striking. His gruff, uncompromising character serves as the film's moral anchor, albeit a twisted one.
1-0. Come to get me.
Refusing to compromise his black and white view of justice, Haley's performance is a powerful embodiment of a man consumed by his convictions, making Rorschach one of the most memorable antiheroes in cinema. Equally impressive is the film's score, composed by Tyler Bates. The music enhances the atmosphere, moving from nostalgic tracks like Bob Dylan's The Times They Are Unchangin' to haunting original pieces that understand the film's bleak outlook. The soundtrack complements the film's visual and thematic depth, creating an immersive experience that lingers long after the credits roll. Watchmen arrived at a time when superhero stories were still largely about hope and triumph, but it predicted the shift toward darker, more introspective storytelling that now dominates the genre. While it may not have soared in 2009, it stands as a testament to the evolving nature of superhero cinema. Over a decade later, Watchmen has found its place as a visionary film that dared to question the very idea of heroism itself. Today, it remains a bold, challenging, and ultimately prophetic piece of cinema that continues to influence how we perceive heroes on the big screen. Curious about the untold story of Zack Snyder's Justice League trilogy that never made it to the big screen? Click here now to uncover the surprising plot twists and what could have been the future of the DCU.